Today, I would like to explore Star Wars Dark Forces, a first-person shooter released by LucasArts for MS-DOS and Macintosh in 1995 and PlayStation in 1996. The 90s were a big turning point for the Star Wars franchise, especially when it came to video games. In the early years of the franchise, Lucasfilm licensed the video game rights for its budding sci-fi fantasy epic to Atari. This meant that when the games division of Lucasfilm, later known as LucasArts, was established, they could not make video games based on the stories and characters that had made them famous. As such, they ended up creating new worlds and stories, most famously the landmark point-and-click adventure games Maniac Mansion and Secret of Monkey Island. By the early 90s, however, the game rights to Star Wars were back at Lucas, where the creators set to work not only creating engaging gameplay experiences, but also telling new stories in George Lucas's galaxy far, far away. A few early examples include the flight simulators X-Wing and TIE Fighter, the Rebel Assault series of rail shooters, and the first-person shooter Dark Forces. Upon first glance, Star Wars Dark Forces bears a strong resemblance to Doom, one of the most popular games of the time period. While the game was indeed inspired by unofficial Star Wars Doom mods, Dark Forces is far more than that. To understand where Dark Forces fits into Star Wars lore, it is important to know about the original canon, now known as Legends, versus Disney's canon. For those who don't know, when Disney bought Star Wars in 2012, all prior media except the movies and the 2008 Clone Wars animated series were declared non-canon, and all future expanded media, with the exception of the ongoing Old Republic MMO, would be new canon. Dark Forces is part of the old canon, with the first level set shortly before the original film, aka Episode 4 A New Hope, and the rest of it set between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. In this game, you don't play as Luke or Han or any of the established characters. Instead, you are put in the shoes of a new protagonist that will be developed over the course of multiple games and stories. Enter Kyle Katarn, a former Imperial soldier turned mercenary working for the Rebel Alliance. I commend LucasArts for giving the player a blank slate, as it opened up more storytelling opportunities. After stealing a set of schematics for the Death Star, Katarn is once again enlisted by the Rebellion, this time to destroy the Dark Trooper Project, an Imperial program with the goal of creating a new model of battle droid. Throughout the game, you'll meet a few classic Star Wars characters, including Mon Mothma, Boba Fett, and Jabba the Hutt. At one point, you get to help Crix Madine, the Rebel general who helped plan the Battle of Endor, defect from the Empire to the Rebel Alliance. The game's story is told primarily through the cutscenes and mission briefings. This is a step above Doom, wherein any story was an afterthought, but not yet at current first-person shooter games, where the story is told primarily through the gameplay. The cutscenes are alright considering the era they were made in. My biggest issue is how, from time to time, they mix in digitized characters from the movies with the hand-drawn characters created for the game. The voice acting is competent, as to be expected from a LucasArts game. Each level of Dark Forces sees you navigate maze-like sets, mowing down wave after wave of Imperials to reach your objective. The classic E11 is here along with other guns to help you reach your goal. These goals are varied from level to level, although it's usually simply to start off, accomplish your objective, and come back to the drop zone. The levels themselves are varied enough, with some levels having multiple environments. There are even some areas that either are or would become familiar in future films, such as the Super Star Destroyer Executor and the Imperial capital of Coruscant. The game's controls are one reason this game could use a remake or remastering. One of the game's improvements over Doom is the ability to aim up and down. Unfortunately, you can only aim up and down with the keyboard, while the mouse can only turn left and right, so you might have to get used to playing it with just the keyboard, turning left and right with the arrow keys, tilting up and down with page up and page down, and firing with left control. Apparently there are some fan patches that give you more modern mouse controls, but I haven't tried those yet. Also, you have to get used to the fact that the thermal detonators are in their own weapon slot, meaning unlike grenade weapons in modern games, you can't throw and shoot. On the plus side, this was before Halo normalized having only a handful of weapons at a time. Not that that was necessarily a bad thing. So long as you had ammo, you can use it at any point. Also, I could do without the platforming segments. This sort of thing was in first-person shooters as late as Half-Life, and I'd rather it wasn't, given that unlike in a third-person game, you can't see directly under you. Finally, there's this whole thing about this game not having waypoints, forcing you to look around for the objective, and the exits that aren't always visible if you don't look carefully. Some people actually are drawn to this aspect of 90s shooters, and while it can be a little frustrating for me, I managed to get through it. One could not talk about LucasArts in the 90s without mentioning their music. The iMuse music system, introduced in Monkey Island 2: LeChuck's Revenge, changes the music to fit the on-screen action, making your sound card less like a tape recorder and more like a pit orchestra. Hearing it used here with the iconic Star Wars score by John Williams draws you further into the world of Star Wars, and the MIDI renditions of the iconic melodies were some of the best of their time. So that's an overview of Star Wars Dark Forces. This game, while dated by today's standards, is still definitely worth a look if you're a fan of either Star Wars or 90s shooters like Doom. Like much of the LucasArts back catalog, it is available for purchase on GOG or Steam, and is playable on modern PCs via DOSBox. So, whether you experienced it back in the day, or are hearing about it for the first time, head on over there, pick it up, and enjoy some 90s Star Wars FPS action.